Tropical Storm Debby, it's on its way up the East Coast. All right, it's already bringing impacts to the Mid Atlantic and the Northeast. We have to talk about some possible tornado threat that we have. That's going to be kind of coming from Debby, and we also have to talk about the flooding, which is going to be happening because of Debby's heavy rains. I've got all the details coming right up. All right, so thank you for joining me here on this Thursday evening. We have a lot to talk about in this video as we're going to go over the latest details on Tropical Storm Debby. This is actually just going to be kind of a quicker video rather than my usual 30-minute long videos. It's probably going to be about 10-15 minutes long, but just going to talk about Debby here, going quickly through the NAM 3K model. So as you can see, we're getting to the overnight hours of tonight. As we get into tonight, we're going to start to see some really heavy rains start to, stretch into sections of Pennsylvania here. I think that could definitely lead to a flooding threat. So that's going to be about 2 a.m. A lot of moisture up ahead of Debby up into northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and upstate New York. Debby's low, the center of low pressure, is still moving up through Virginia by the time we get to the middle of the night. It's raining very hard in far eastern West Virginia. You've got far western Maryland out there. But you're starting to see some really intense rainfall move into sections of New Jersey, into eastern Pennsylvania, southern New England. It's still drizzling by the time you get to 5 a.m. We're waking up at about 9 a.m., and you're really just starting to get battered by strong gusty winds out there in upstate New York near the Finger Lakes. Look at all these pockets of extreme, very heavy rainfall, all right? You also got that low pressure center kind of still moving through. So you've got a long way to go by the time you're waking up on or tomorrow morning. All right. But this is still trying to move up through the Northeast. It's kind of bring this little band of moisture that was actually out ahead of it, north of it. It's starting to pick that up and kind of just move with it. So that's going to definitely pose a risk for to flash flooding here for areas of Maine and then also up into Canada. All right, but you're starting to see some lines of some potentially damaging wind gusts start to form here from Debby, and it's kind of this little tail end of the storm that we're expecting to see severe weather from, and we're really getting to the afternoon hours, the daytime heating hours, when we really start to see that severe weather threat potentially ramp up across sections of eastern PA, getting to New Jersey. Definitely a possible tornado threat with that. Isolated tornadoes are certainly possible, but this is really looking like it could produce some damaging wind gusts, and definitely some possible tornadoes by the time we get into the late afternoon, early evening, and dinner time kind of hours there. And then this is still trying to hold itself together as we go into as it gets into southern New England and kind of just moves off the coast there. But by the time we get through the middle of the night, you're probably going to start to see the New England coastline seeing some of those stronger storms, because I think by the time we get to about 2, 3, 4 in the morning, I think everything should be dry out there in the interior Northeast. But if you're on the New England coastline, like you're talking about Massachusetts, Maine, even into Connecticut, Rhode Island, all right, those kind of areas, that's probably when you're going to start to see these potentially severe storms. And then this is going to pretty much be all the way out by the time we get to 9 a.m., and we'll start to see some cold air get shot down from Canada. So taking a look at the National Hurricane Center, or I should say the Weather Prediction Center's official kind of rainfall forecast here. So right now they are going for the highest amounts being around 4 to 6 inches. Those areas would be pretty much across central Pennsylvania down into far like extreme eastern Maryland. All right, you've got a little bit of northwestern Virginia out there, and in fact, actually, you do have a little tiny streak here. If you can see that, we do have a little streak of an area of 6 to 8 inches of rain that's possible. Areas to the northeast of Roanoke out there, but all right, anybody in the dark green shade, you're talking about 2 to 4 inches. That's pretty much for everybody down from Wilmington all the way up, kind of through through North Carolina into Virginia, and then obviously into Delmarva. You got Pennsylvania up there, and then into upstate New York, and into the interior Northeast. So once again, if you're in the dark green shade, that's where you're going to be going for 2 to 4 inches of rain. If you're in the light green shade, it's about 1 to 2 inches. All right. As of right now, the I-95 corridor seems to be looking like it's going to miss the heaviest of rainfall. So right now, DC, you're going for 1 to 2, as well as Philadelphia. New York City might not even get any rain at all from the core of Debby. All right, that outer band that we talked about, or I guess that little feature that kind of is gonna hang down from Debby, that's gonna bring you rain. But kind of the core of Debby itself is probably not going to give you that much rain. All right, so at max 1 to 2 inches from that, but even that outer band or that kind of feature that we saw kind of stretching down from the core of Debby, that could definitely give you around 1 to 2 inches if you're in Philadelphia, New York City, anybody along the I-95 corridor. Certainly possible to get 1 to 2 inches from that band, but really, if you go farther north and west, that's where you're going to see the higher totals. So right now, Hartford, Connecticut, you guys are going for 1 to 2 inches. Boston looks like you guys are going to be good, but you could definitely get some storms that are going to be kind of hanging down from Debby as well. So you'll have to watch out for that. But if you're in Maine right now, looking for 1 to 2 inches generally. But if you're farther north you go, the more rain you're going to get. So if you're in the dark green shade, we're going for 2 to 4 inches. So going back to that severe weather threat I was talking about, we actually do have a level 2 out of 5 slight risk for severe weather, including all of New Jersey. You've got extreme northern parts of Delaware and northeastern parts of Maryland in there, and then you've got pretty big chunk of eastern Pennsylvania included in this slight risk. All right. So that little feature we saw on the NAM, I mean, this could definitely have the potential of producing some severe weather, and so that's why we have this slight risk. And this is including some populated areas like Newark, New Jersey. You got Princeton, New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey. You got Vineland, New Jersey. All right, Cape May, you're in it. Atlantic City, you're pretty much right on the line. So I guess you could consider yourself in the slight risk. But New York City, pretty much right on the line. So I mean, we all know that New York City is very, very populated. So the kind of interesting part of this, and also the dangerous part of this, is that we have a 5% tornado threat, which is pretty significant. But the interesting part about this is that this is a region that doesn't usually get tornado events, and the fact that we have a 5% tornado threat in this region is, just gonna be maybe a first for some of these areas, for some of these people, because we very rarely get any, sort of tornado threat all year round. All right, in this region, but because of Debby, we are going to see a chance for a tornado. All right, and notice how that 5% risk for tornadoes is actually a little bit farther to the west of where the rest of that slight risk area is. So the farther west you are, if you're in the slight risk, that's basically where you're gonna have the highest tornado threat, if that makes sense. But you've got the western half of New Jersey included in that. That does still include Princeton and Trenton. All right, and you've got eastern sections of PA that does include Philadelphia. So please be aware if you're in Philadelphia that there's a chance that you could be put under a tornado warning at some point. Really depends on just what kind of storm you're getting. But you also do have that 2% risk, which is still considered slightly elevated. That does include a much bigger area. Also to mention Binghamton, you guys are included in the 5% risk. So notice how there is a little sliver of southeastern New York that is included in both the slight risk and the 5% tornado threat. But in the green shade, that's a 2% risk. That includes some much more populated areas like New York City, kind of just the rest of the I-95 corridor. But you've got the coastal regions of New Jersey. You've got sections of Western Mass. You've got western portions of Connecticut. But really, I think that the significant tornado threat is definitely going to be in the 5% risk, but still, there's a very high chance that we're going to get a few tornado warnings inside the 2% risk. So it's just really interesting to see how we have a elevated tornado threat in a region that really rarely gets any tornadoes. And this is all just because of that little feature that we saw off of Debby kind of hanging down from the south from the NAM. So that line could definitely end up producing a few tornadoes. And then we also do have a 15% chance of damaging wind gusts. That does include the rest of the slight risk area. So the entire slight risk area is under a 15% chance of seeing damaging wind gusts. All right, so that does include Newark, New Jersey, Princeton, Trenton, Vineland. That does include New York City. Includes Middletown, Seaside Heights, Atlantic City, Cape May. So all these major cities in New Jersey. You've got Eastern PA, Pennsylvania. You've got sections of Delmarva out there. So really, if you're in the yellow shade, That's where you have the 15% chance. That's a pretty high chance of seeing damaging wind gusts. So that line, with the very sharp contrast, that's kind of a signature for some possible damaging wind gusts. So please, if you didn't notice that, go back and check that out in the video. All right, but everywhere else, if you're in the brown shade, you've got a 5 to 14% chance of seeing damaging wind gusts. That kind of goes out for all the areas that are going to be impacted by Debby, but I think that the more north you are, the less of a chance you're going to get damaging wind gusts that are related to the thunderstorms that are embedded with Debby. But definitely still a significant chance of seeing damaging wind gusts and tornadoes from Debby. But it's really just that little feature we saw on the NAM that really kind of just shows the chance for seeing some severe weather in this region. So finally, we're going to take a look here at just the potential for seeing some really strong to potentially damaging winds that are not going to be related to those thunderstorms. Just strong winds are going to be coming from this stout southerly flow. We've got a really big surge of moisture that's going to be coming up from the south. All right, it's going to be kind of coming up like this, kind of pushing some big waves up towards these southern New England coastlines. So south shore of Long Island, definitely possible to get even some storm surge, but some very high waves out there. But really all the coastal regions of like New Jersey, Long Island, southern New England in general, big waves are definitely going to be kind of pushed towards you because you've got that southerly flow with that big plume of moisture kind of heading your way. But you're looking at these these wind gusts here on just the map here. This is from the HRRR, so you can see that kind of the strongest of winds staying with the coastal regions here. But I mean, you're overall seeing gusty winds between pretty much 30 and 40 miles per hour, but some spots, isolated spots, if mostly on the coastline, getting up to about 50 miles per hour in the Delmarva area. So DC are probably going to be gusting to about 40 miles per hour as we get later into tonight and into tomorrow morning. All right, this is late tomorrow morning. Really starting to see these winds start to take shape, and we start to see winds getting or wind gusts, I should say, getting over 50 miles per hour. There's 152 south of Scranton. All right, but anybody out here in Eastern PA, definitely possible to get some strong winds, because look at this southerly flow. You're getting really strong winds coming up from the south. They're tucking into the center of low pressure, which is right here, south of St. Mary's. All right. But look at this across portions of New Jersey and Long Island, all along these coastal regions. You're still seeing wind gusts between 30 and 40 miles per hour, with some localized spots of potentially up to 50 miles per hour possible. And then this even increases, and we're getting into about 1 to 3 in the afternoon. You can see New York City are gusting to about 50 miles per hour. So this could honestly lead to power outages. Look at that. Just to the east of Scranton, you're gusting close to 60 miles per hour. So, I mean, 60 mile per hour wind gusts really results in pretty widespread power outages. So if we're getting wind gusts of up to 50 miles per hour, I mean, this is still even getting into this evening, or tomorrow evening, I should say. If we're going to get widespread wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour, we could honestly have a potential for some localized power outages. But look at Long Island still gusting to 50 miles per hour. You got all pretty much southern New England gusting to 40 to 50 miles per hour. And then obviously these upper elevations of Vermont really getting the brunt of these winds. Those mountainous regions obviously depends on the elevation, but just really, really intense, strong winds overall. You're going to get a nasty mix of, really intense downpours, some really strong winds. But overall, across the board, about 40 to 50 miles per hour wind gusts at max. The highest of winds being closer to the coastline, because you're going to get, once again, that southerly flow kind of, pushing some higher waves and bringing some higher winds up to these coastlines of southern New England. All right, that can result in some minor coastal flooding across south-facing shorelines, and then obviously into sections of New Jersey. You could or the Jersey coast. You could definitely get some very high waves and possibly even some minor storm surge. But overall, just some really gusty winds that you got to watch out for, 40 to 50 miles per hour at max. But yeah, that's gonna be pretty much it. So that's gonna end the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you actually like this new style of video. I just did it for this one time because I didn't really have time to do a full 40-minute video. But Once again, just let me know in the comments. But stay safe out there. This is the last day that we're gonna have Debby. This is most likely the last update I'm gonna have for you guys on Debby. So once again, just please stay safe out there. And I'll see you guys next video.